Okay, in this video we're going to talk about iterations in for loops. We've already looked at for loops by simply doing a counter within a certain range, which really isn't very different from in other languages, but Python has a pretty cool way to iterate through objects, lists, and so forth. So let's start off by using strings. So I'm going to say my string is equal to welcome home. And now I'm going to create a counter, and I'm going to say for char in my string. So basically we're going to loop through the elements of the string. I'm going to say print char, and then I'm going to say count is equal to count plus 1, and then at the end of the loop we'll say print string head count characters. Alright, so let's go ahead and run this little snippet. And so it printed those out, welcome home, and it says the string has 13 characters. So here's another way that you can use this iteration through objects. So I'm going to create a list. I'm going to say my list, and we'll just make this strings. It could be anything though. We'll say Canada. I'm going to make some country names: Denmark, China, Russia, and Australia. And the way you loop through a list is you can do for element in my list. So now your loop iterator element is actually an object from the list rather than a counter. So that's a pretty neat feature. So we can say print element. So let's run that one. And so you see it printed out the names of the countries. Not too exciting, but it illustrates the concept, which is pretty interesting. Okay, so now you can also loop through a functions. We're going to talk more about functions later, but the keyword you use to define a function is def, and I'm going to call mine square it. And again, we'll talk more about functions in a future video. And so I'm just going to make some code here to square numbers. But here's what's really neat. I'm going to show you how to call the function in a for loop. So I'm going to say for count in square it print count. Okay, what happened there? In range 10. Oh, I forgot in. Alright, so now you see at the bottom it printed the squares of the numbers 0, 1, 4, 9, all the way up to 81 because we put range 10. But the important line for us here is that we actually called the function in the for loop and use that as our criteria. And so that's a pretty neat feature of Python.